One of the more interesting pieces of extended media in the Berserk franchise actually comes in the form of a video game, oddly titled Sword of the Berserk: Guts' Rage. Well, that's the overseas retitling anyway. The Japanese release is called Berserk Millennium Falcon Arc Chapter of the Flowers of Oblivion. So yeah, there's no simple title no matter what you want to go with. It was originally released on the Dreamcast in Japan in December of 1999, and it's interesting for a number of different reasons. Let's start with that release date. December 16th, 1999. And this is assuming that the online sources are accurate, but if so, then the most recent chapter of the manga at that time was chapter 152, which takes place right before the final act of the Conviction arc begins to take off. What's interesting about that is that the storyline of the video game would take place canonically well after this, specifically after chapter 182, which wouldn't come out until July of 2001. So Japanese readers who played this video game would have been seeing events that take place a year and a half early than when the manga would eventually catch up. And I say all of this because Sword of the Berserk, or whatever title you want to call it, is considered by many to be true canon to the manga story, since you theoretically can fit it in without any contradictions, and the biggest reason is that one of the writers of the game's story was none other than Kentaro Miura himself. You can't get any more official than that. So yeah, the game is not a recreation of any of the events or story of the manga, but instead a fully original side story with direct involvement from Miura himself. In the manga story, it would take place after Guts, Puck, and Casca leave the Hill of Swords shortly after his battle with Zod and reuniting with Griffith. It's when they decide to make their way to Elfhelm to get Casca someplace safe. After they leave, there's a handful of chapters that focus on Farnese and Serpico traveling and telling their story, as well as Griffith starting to build his army and new Band of the Hawk. So we can assume that all of the events of the video game take place during this time, and before Farnese, Serpico, and Isidro catch up to Guts and join him on his quest. Nothing in the game contradicts anything that comes before or after, so yeah, it's the hidden adventure that we never got to see. But what's even more amusing is that this game was released in the United States shortly after the Japanese release in the year 2000. And for reference, Dark Horse did not even begin publishing Berserk in English until 2003. And by the time the manga releases here would catch up to this point in the story, it wouldn't be until 2008. It was even before the dub of the classic 90s anime series, so that would make Sword of the Berserk, the video game, the first piece of the Berserk franchise to ever come out here in the West, and it was many people's first exposure into this world. There's even an old ad for GameDealer.com that features Guts side by side with Lara Croft, as if he's just a regular video game character. Nobody knew who he was then, so fuck it, put him with Lara Croft. So imagine people trying to understand what was going on in this game, dropping you randomly near 200 chapters into the story. Well, the game does a decent job staying focused on its own story and doesn't bother going into a big lore dump about all the things happening around Guts, but I still bet players were expecting an explanation somewhere in the game as to why Casca lost her mind, or what's up with Guts and his travels, or why he's missing an arm or an eye, but it never comes up. Anyway, in all the years that I have been a Berserk fan, I never played the game for myself, so I decided to change that and give you guys a full review on both the story and the gameplay. So let's get into Sword of the Berserk: Guts' Rage. It starts out when a group of travelers, including a young girl named Rita, are attacked by some traveling bandits right when Casca stumbles onto the scene. The bandits get one look at Casca and decide they want to, well, you know what they want. But soon, Guts shows up right behind her and decides to teach them all a lesson or two. Now, this is a standard hack-and-slash style game. You have two attacks with the Dragon Slayer, and also Guts has his throwing knives, bombs, and at least one blast of the arm cannon you can use until you find a refill on it. So essentially, all of Guts' classic attacks are here. Getting a handle on the controls can be a bit tricky, and there's no targeting or much accuracy at all. You pretty much just have to swing around and hope for the best. Because it's also ridiculously easy to just tap the joystick a little too hard in the wrong direction and have Guts face the wrong way and start swinging at nothing. The opening battle is pretty damn easy, but it's just a tease for the real shitstorm to come. Once the red bar is loaded from performing attacks, Guts goes, Berserk.
He said it! He said it!
Yeah, this is the Guts' rage part of the title. For a limited time while the meter runs down, you don't really take any damage, and you can deal a lot of pain to all of your enemies. It's kind of like Dante's Devil Trigger from Devil May Cry, though this game technically came out first. The first part of the game is also filled with cutscenes and not much gameplay at all, but I actually found that fascinating and kind of endearing. One, because I'm more interested in figuring out what the story of this game was, and two, because you can really feel the writer side of Kentaro Miura here, as in his style isn't exactly suited for making video games. He's truly building up characters, ideas, expanding lore, and trying to make it fit within his canon without any contradictions, and I respect that. The English dub of the game is also hilarious at times, but I can't imagine any of the voice actors knew much of a clue at all about what Berserk was, so given their lack of information and having to dub a game that's this far into the story, I give it a pass. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. Video game dubs in the early 2000s weren't exactly masterpieces anyway. I think it holds up just fine for what it is, but there are some moments that really make me laugh.
This mean-looking guy is Gatsu. He's my buddy and carries my house, you could say.
Oh.
And that's our Casca. Even you need to take a break once in a while. All work and no play will make you a grump.
Oh.
Come on, come on, come on. I wanna go. We both wanna go. Please, please, please. Oh, please, come on, let us go. Let's live a little. Come on, Gatsu. Please.
Sure, whatever.
After that, it goes into the opening credits, and we do get original music from Susumu Hirasawa, the same exact composer from the 1990s Berserk anime, which is a nice touch and helps it really feel like Berserk. When Guts gets to town, they see Rita performing, and then the strongman of the group begins to freak out, change forms, and attack. But shockingly enough, this is not an apostle. It's a human under the effect of a magical plant called the Mandragora, something brand new Miura added for this game and not really seen in the main series. We can assume that it's from the astral world, and at this point the worlds are subtly beginning to merge, and if the plant attaches to someone, it can take them over and have them act violently with powers that are similar to the aliens from Parasite. Whatever the case, Guts defeats it, and we're introduced to our true main antagonist of the game, Ballsack. Yeah, that's his name. Okay, it's technically Balzac, but you're crazy if you think my childhood sense of humor is not going to just call him Ballsack from this point forward. Just look at his hair. I bet there's a giant ballsack under there. Ballsack. Ballsack takes Guts and company back to his castle, and again, it may surprise you that he is also not an apostle. Not right now, anyway. He's a baron that's been researching and experimenting on the Mandragora and believes that these plants actually possess healing properties, and not just physically. He believes that if he can obtain the heart of a Mandragora, that he could truly utilize it to help people, and where Guts comes in, he thinks he could use it to heal Casca's mind. Now, Guts isn't one to just trust somebody out of nowhere, and Ballsack definitely looks like he's got a hidden agenda, but at this point in the story, Guts doesn't have any idea that Casca could be healed on Elfhelm. He's just trying to get her someplace safe. So the idea of getting her back to her senses is a risk that he's willing to take. And so we have our adventure to find the heart of a Mandragora and bring it back to Ballsack. Up until now, most of the game has actually been cutscenes and story, and this is a good 25 minutes or so in. But now, the real gameplay starts, and our descent into hell commences. Yeah, let's talk about the actual game part of this video game. Let me tell you, the novelty of playing as Guts wears off pretty damn quick, and it becomes a frustrating nightmare of epic proportions. If the theme of Berserk is struggling, then kudos to this game for truly capturing that spirit. First of all, what's Guts' signature weapon? The Dragon Slayer, right? A big-ass sword. Well, the game constantly puts you in tight corridors, streets, and other locations that make it nearly impossible to get a full swing in. You end up with these half swings and then you clang against the wall, and it takes several seconds to wait until the attack is done so that you can move and try to do another attack. But the enemies, they don't wait at all. They just swarm you, and they're fast as fuck. You could try to run or slide away from them, but they just chase you down instantly. And if you can't swing your sword all the way, you just waste the attack and then get pummeled. There were times that I put my sword away and just started swinging. Yeah, picture Guts just boxing his way through a swarm of opponents. Guts the 100-man boxer, but it works better than trying to use the sword sometimes. What's even more frustrating is that every time you go to a new area, you have to draw your sword again, even if you already had it out and are currently fighting with it. There's so many times where I kept trying to swing and then realized the game put my sword away for me. You get swarmed by enemies and then you have to try to draw the sword, which should have already been out because you were just fighting other enemies with it. And then there's the small enemies, the little frogs, and the other bullshit here that are so hard to hit, and there's no accuracy whatsoever. Like I said, there's no targeting system, so you just have to swing around and hope you get lucky enough to hit them. The bigger enemies, at least you will hit them if you can swing your sword and it's not blocked by the surrounding area. But trying to hit the small enemies, it's like a 50-50 chance. And just look at this bullshit. You reach a new area and you're just immediately swarmed. I'm trying to jump out of it, but you get stunned, which means you can't move and you gotta wait for Guts to stand back up. So you just sit there, button mashing like crazy, trying to do something, anything to escape this madness, but it's nearly impossible. But then, the worst of it is the worst of it all. You have to beat at least a third of the entire game before you can save even once. To my count, there's only 3 save points in the entire game. So you have to do these huge segments of the game without all of your lives depleting, or else you start all the way back at the beginning. You can't save whenever you want to. You usually only get 1 arm cannon and maybe 1 to 2 health boosts, and this is all you have before you get to any kind of boss. And the bosses are no different. If you fail at a boss, you go all the way back to the last checkpoint. So, in story, once you finally get to the other village and kill everything here without dying, you speak to a nun named Ariza. Also, Guts' stops here are really great.
There used to be a boy named Nico in this village.
The next little bit is kind of confusing, and the English dub doesn't do it any favors, but the version I have did not have a Japanese option with subtitles, so I don't know exactly what's going on. She tells of the story of Nico, a boy that died of starvation, and in the flashbacks we see him holding a bailet. Later on, you fight Nico as a boss who is this giant mandragoran plant creature alongside Ariza. But it's a little unclear who's in charge here, and it does seem to be Ariza, and Nico's consciousness is dormant, like he's the true heart of the mandragoran. So he's not an apostle, but instead some kind of reincarnation or fused with the plant in some way. He's never stated to be an apostle. Guts' brand does not bleed when he's near him, and the bailet was in Ariza's possession, and she drops it later on, which ultimately leads it being picked up and brought back to Balzac's castle. So I'm assuming that the bailet was always meant for Balzac, and the cruel twist of fate is that he wanted the heart of the Mandragoran, which was Nico, but what he actually will get brought back to him is the bailet. But how the kid and the nun turned into a giant Mandragoran plant, I guess I'm a little bit lost there. The only thing causing contradictions would be that Guts' brand doesn't bleed, and there's no portal to hell taking it to its death, but you know what? Forget all that, because we got something better. Is that? Oh, wait. Yes, it is. It's motherfucking Zod! Well, first, Puck comes in. He's trying to break Casca out of her holding cell, and, oh yeah, Casca got captured. Come on, you knew that was coming. But then Zod comes crashing down from the ceiling, sensing her brand, and the nice guy he is lets her out of jail. Really, he was hoping to find Guts, so he flies away. But don't worry, that won't be the last we see of him. Puck and Casca explore the castle and find some really weird shit, one Mandragoran experiment that bears a striking similarity to Casca's demon child, and they also find a young girl that they assume is Balzac's daughter, but she also seems like she's in a daze and unable to speak, very similar to Casca. Back with Guts, after you defeat Nico and the nun, Balzac's men arrive on the scene, but they are quickly scared away as Zod crash lands in front of all of them. And here, if you count it as canon, is the hidden Guts versus Zod fight that we never knew about. And all I have to say is, fuck this boss battle. This is by far one of the most difficult and rage-inducing moments of the entire game. You expect Zod to be strong, sure, and difficult, but he outclasses you in so many ways that it's not even funny. Trying to do damage on him is so insanely difficult that I don't even know where to begin. First, look at these camera angles. It does not help you at all, and dodging him might be easier if I could tell what goddamn direction I was gonna move in. The camera just circles around you and you get disoriented, and Zod can spring up into the air, he can jump, he can sprint, and he can just scream and you take damage. And also, he subtly heals every time that he's hit. And if he hits you, about a fourth of your life bar goes away immediately. Zod kicked my ass, and I had to play this fight about 30 goddamn times. The best advice I can offer is hit him with the arm cannon immediately, and then there's an extra arm cannon you can pick up if he leaves you alone for 2 goddamn seconds so that you can go find the random barrel near a random house that all look the same, that you might be able to get a second arm cannon. And after that, try to hit him 3 times with your sword. No more, no less, because if you stand there any longer, he'll hit you. So 3 times, then dodge away, then 3 more times, then dodge, and repeat that process until you finally activate your rage meter, and then just button mash the ever-loving shit out of him like your life depends on it, and annihilate your fingers with all of the attack buttons. But you want to know what the real kicker is? This boss battle is the beginning of a save point. Which means if you beat Zod and continue the game and you die before you reach Balzac, you have to restart here and fight Zod all over again. What a load of bullshit. Fighting Zod himself will probably take multiple tries unless you master it, and then you have to fight your way through an entire village in order to get to Balzac's castle. And if you lose all your lives, you go back and you fight Zod again. I almost said fuck it right here, but my own internal Berserker armor began to activate, and I owe you guys a full, extensive review of this game, and I would be damned if I was going to make this video without completing it. So I slammed another energy drink, I screamed into a pillow, cried a little bit, shit my pants, and started playing this game again. And eventually, I got it done. That's how much I love you guys. So maybe give the video a like. Anyway, in the story, Zod just kind of ends the fight, only wanting to scrap with Guts, and also tells him about Casca. That's very nice of him. He also subtly mentions that he's looking for warriors, which is a little tease that Griffith is assembling the new Band of the Hawk without Guts' knowledge just yet. There's also the consistency of Guts bringing death wherever he goes. The people in the village basically saw him show up and then everything went to hell. So it's a similar vibe to the Jill Rosine segment of the manga, where even though Guts was the one fighting evil, he's the one that everyone blames for bringing destruction. The next segment is basically fighting your way through the original town to get to Balzac. And again, you just get constantly swarmed in a never-ending wave of enemies. And you know what really pissed me off? These archers with crossbows are the most accurate motherfuckers in gaming history. Even if you're moving and running around as fast as you can, they never seem to miss. Everybody in the goddamn army is apparently a perfect marksman, and it's frustrating as all hell. You want to take them out first, but you get swarmed by people, so you need to fight them off, but while you're fighting them off, you're just getting pelted with arrows from off screen. When you finally get to Balzac, there's actually a really interesting parallel in play. See, Balzac really wanted to get the Mandragoran for its healing properties, and it was a selfish desire where he didn't care who he hurt in the process to get it. The girl that Casca and Puck found earlier was actually his wife, who, unlike him, did not age due to the effects of the plant. She was once deathly ill, and what he could get from the plant did heal her, and it also kept her young, but it took away her mind and her sense of self, leaving her in a state that's very similar to Casca. In the meantime, Balzac fell into darkness, took refuge in killing others and ruling with an iron fist. It broke him down, and he ended up hurting more people in the process than he helped. And in this, you can see relation to Guts, how his desperation to help Casca is breaking him down in other ways, but straining on his mental and physical state. And this story takes place right before an infamous moment of his breakdown in the manga. Balzac intentionally infects himself with the plant, mutating him into a stronger, faster version of himself, but this boss battle is a breeze compared to Zod. You beat Balzac and you think it's over, but oh no, he has the Bailet now. But before that, you do one of these stupid running stages where you can't see what's in front of you. I hate this kind of stuff. Anyway, there are actually 2 more final bosses in this game. The first is the weird Mandragora baby that we saw earlier, now grown into something massive, like a different version of the Nico plant boss from earlier. Once you defeat it, you get a very interesting scene, where the effects of the plant actually, for a brief moment, bring Casca back to a state of consciousness. It's just enough for her to open her eyes and say Guts' name before falling right back out of that state.
Casca, hang in there, my love.
Gatsu, my dear, I was dreaming a really bad dream.
Casca, Casca, Casca.
How tormenting that is for Guts to have Casca brought back for literally 10 seconds before she goes away again. Miura proving to us once again that even in a side story, Guts' life is nothing but pain. Balzac's Bailet activates, choosing to sacrifice his wife, and we only briefly see images of the God Hand. Interestingly enough, we don't see Femto, and I wonder if that's because, canonically, he would be in the physical realm now as Griffith, or simply because the game makers didn't decide to add him. But what the hell is going on with this room that you fight him in? Is this in the astral realm? We don't see the God Hand or anything else around it, but it seems similar to when Guts fought the Count. It's probably just a creative choice for a cool visual for the final boss of the game, but if you think about it canonically, I think we have to assume Guts was pulled into the astral world in order to have this fight. After you finally beat him, Guts, Casca, and Puck say goodbye to Rita, again similar to the finale with Jill. She thanks them for all that they've done, and Guts once again begins his journey towards Elfhelm that would eventually pick us back up with him in the manga at chapter 187. But then, after the credits of this game, there's one final cutscene. Our Calcium King, the Skull Knight, appears. He doesn't say a word, he just strolls into Balzac's chambers, takes his Bailet, eats it, and pieces out. Again, I wonder what people made of this scene back in 2000 before any Berserk manga or anime was out and translated here. If you didn't know who Skull Knight was and you just saw this, you'd think, what the fuck? And in a way, that's kind of cool. I would probably assume he was going to be a future enemy or something, but even in the real story, there's still a lot to Skull Knight that's left to our imaginations, and I like it that way. Anyway, Sword of the Berserk, Guts' Rage, if anything, I'd say it's interesting. There's some cool ideas here, and I like that it can theoretically fit nicely into the main story. The other 2 Berserk video games that were made have you play through the timeline of the manga, so this is the only one that has an original story. And it's also probably the last spot in the manga where you could have had a side adventure off screen, which is probably why they've never tried to make another one. Anytime after this would be really hard to fit a different side story in. The gameplay, though, is more annoying than it is fun, with the constant blocking of being able to use your own sword, finicky mechanics, swarming enemies, and a lack of save points. I would really only recommend it if you want the true Guts struggling experience. It has its moments, but overall, with both story and gameplay, it's just okay. However, the Puck minigame at the end, now that's some peak shit. Anyways, guys, let me know what you think of Sword of the Berserk, Guts' Rage. If you've played it, if you've looked into it, leave all your thoughts and comments down below. Don't forget to like the video and also check out the channel for some other videos that might tickle your fancy. Hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. I'll talk to you next time.